Hello, Power Up Nation. I'm Pat Council, and I want to talk about how to know if you are holding yourself back. In other words, how do you tell if you're resisting your own success? I mean, we all have some amazing gifts and talents. We all have a purpose for being here on this earth. And when we really fully engage in that purpose and we use that purpose the way we're supposed to, okay, because that's the assignment I guess God gave us. He put that talent in us or that gift or that idea. And when we bring it to the forefront and we start to use it, there is a certain level of success that will come from that. Now, there are different levels of success. But what I do know is that whatever level of success that you reach as a result of being obedient to your calling or your talent, and usually it's the thing that you get really excited about, the thing that your passion, it just seems to come alive. And whenever we kind of step up to the plate and decide, you know what, I'm going to do this no matter what. I might be a little bit afraid, but I'm still going to go forward with it. Other people might not agree with me, but I'm still going to go forward with it. Whenever we do that, there's some great rewards that come from that. So those of you that are listening to this right now, you know, on some level, if you're holding yourself back. And let's talk about that a little bit. And there are some people who kind of, a little bit delusional, and they think it's someone else's fault. So let's talk about that a little bit as well. So I want to talk about how to know if you're holding yourself back so that you can start giving yourself permission and stop resisting this magnificent life that you deserve. Stop resisting the best of the best that's going to come into your life. Now, before I share these different ideas, and I want to point something out. When we talk about holding yourself back, a lot of times on this podcast, I do talk about, being successful financially, getting the new car, the new house, and having those great relationships with friends and families, and the intimate relationship with that special someone in your life, your spouse, or whomever. So I talk about that a lot. And yes, you can have all of that. But just for today or for this podcast, let's separate all of that from, because those are outcomes. So let's separate those outcomes just for a minute and let's just take a look at you, because this is all about you really stepping up and stepping up in terms of acknowledging, hey, you know what? If I'm not getting the things that I want, if my life is not working out the way I had hoped, and a lot of people will say, I'm doing the best I can. Well, here's the thing, and that might be true. You may be doing the best that you can, but if you're doing the best that you can outside of your gift, your talent, your calling, that whatever it is you're most passionate about, the energy is lacking. And so as a result, you're only going to go so far. As a matter of fact, there are people who work on jobs for years, and then at the end, when it's time, let's say when it's time for them to retire, it's kind of a lackluster feeling. And they find themselves complaining and wishing that they had done something more or something different years ago. But why didn't they? It's because they were holding themselves back. So let's get into this. The first thing that I want to share with you, and I believe I have 5 for you, and these are 5 ideas or kind of, I want to say philosophies, but they could be philosophies that you can pay attention to and say, okay, this is what I'm doing. But a philosophy is usually something different. So these are some ideas as to what may be, how you can know, or how you will know if you're holding yourself back. So here's the first one. Number 1 is you talk about everything that you don't like, all your don't likes, what you don't like. I don't like this. I don't like doing that. I don't like. And even if you are operating, let's say within your calling, and you are doing something that you really, really love, but you spend your time focusing on what you don't like, at that point, you're giving yourself a reason to not win. And you're making it such that you won't go to the level that you hoped you would go to, the level that you desire, not the level that someone else sets for you, but the level that you desire. It's because you're focused on what you don't like. And you know what? I shared this story with someone, and I was sharing that when I first got into real estate, I had to do some things that I didn't like. Okay, one of which was cold calling. And I don't know about any of you, if you're salespeople that are listening to this, but cold calling is so not fun, or at least it wasn't for me. It was not fun. But you know what? Even though I didn't like it, I didn't focus on what I didn't like. I focused on the outcome that I was going to get from doing the thing that I didn't like. Okay, so I focus on end game. And if you focus on the outcome, in other words, it's kind of like eating a food, I don't know, a vegetable or something. If you remember, when you were a kid, was there a vegetable that you just did not want to eat? And for me, it was broccoli. And oddly enough, now that I'm a grown up, I actually like broccoli. But as a kid, I did not like broccoli. And I'd rather take a punishment than eat broccoli. But the point I'm getting to is I had such a dislike for broccoli. But you know what? When that broccoli would be on my plate, I would be looking at the broccoli and in my mind thinking of how awful it was going to taste. But here's the thing. As an adult, when I grew up and I started to learn, wow, this broccoli is pretty healthy. And I think taste buds evolve, I think, when you become an adult. So I decided to give it another shot. You know, first I would eat the broccoli, I put the cheese on it, and now I can just eat it without the cheese. Okay, because I don't think about and it doesn't taste or leave a bad taste in my mouth like it did then. You know, back then as a kid, oh, this is so nasty. But you know, as an adult, that doesn't happen. But the point that I'm getting to here is I know the nutritional value of broccoli and what it can do for my body, what it can do for my stomach, and these kinds of things. So when it comes to, and I'm not talking about just flat belly, I'm talking about some of the other things that broccoli can do. So when it comes to always looking at what you don't like, you have to understand that if you're going to win and not hold yourself back, you have to look at the end game and go, you know what? This is going to be worth it. It's kind of like, I guess, riding a bike uphill. And then we're going to move on to number 2. You know, so like if you're riding a bike uphill, going downhill is a lot more fun. It's a lot easier. The wind is just breezing, especially if you're in Florida, what little wind we do have, and when it's hot, and now it's starting to get really hot here. And when you're going, you know, downhill, then it's awesome. But going uphill, depending on the size of the hill, it's not that much fun. Okay. Now I'm using that analogy, but I'm in Jacksonville, Florida. We don't have that many big hills, a few. So let's move on. Well, I guess I want to end this by saying, instead of focusing on what you don't like, and understand that when you're doing that, you're giving yourself a reason to quit. You are holding yourself back from, getting the outcome that you desire, which means that it's on some level, you're not going to be that excited about everyday life. It does not feel good when we can't follow through or achieve the goals that we want to achieve. It's not a feel-good moment. So let's move on to number 2. Number 2, how do you know if you're holding yourself back? You're blaming someone else for where you are in life, or you're blaming someone else for what didn't happen, or you're blaming someone else because, I don't know, of what you think they're doing to you and that they're holding you back. Understand this. Nothing and no one can hold you back ultimately. Does that mean there can't be people that will try and stop you, or people that will come into your life who will hinder your success? Yes, sometimes you allow it to happen, not even knowing you're allowing it. And sometimes you can see it happening and you don't want it to happen, but it still continues to happen. But remember, in game, because at the end of the day, no weapon formed against you will prosper. Okay, so nothing and no one can stop you unless you allow it. And so it is important that you understand that instead of wasting time blaming someone else for where you are not in your life. And I always like to confess every now and then. And I guess because this is audio, so I can't really see you guys. So I guess confessing is a lot easier. Now I'm kidding, but I would confess even in a crowd if, I say what I have to say. And if someone can get some benefit from it, that's the good part. So with that being said, instead of blaming someone else for where you are in your life, take responsibility. And I've had people who have done things to hinder me, to stop me from getting something that I want in business, because either they were jealous or they just decided, you know what, she has enough. And I'm like, how do you know I have enough? You don't even know what I have. But whatever their reasonings are, the bottom line is I made the decision. No, I'm going to win. So it doesn't matter who you are. I am going to win. And so, if you spend time blaming someone else where you are in life, then you won't go forward. You are actually holding yourself back. So what do you do instead? What you do, if someone is doing it, okay, and it's real and you can see it, you can acknowledge that to you. Don't go and tell half the free world. One thing I have discovered since I became a grown up, or since I grew up as a grown up, is that you can tell like 5 or 10 people about something that you don't like or what you think someone else is doing to you. You know why we do that? Even as adults, we think someone's going to come to our rescue. And I did a podcast about this, saying no one's coming to save you. The truth of the matter is no one is going to come to your rescue. Now, you can share something with someone and the hopes that you're going to get some wisdom that you can add to your wisdom, the wisdom that God has already put in you. And so sometimes we need each other in that respect. And God has given one person wisdom in an area and some people wisdom, I guess, in another area, or expertise, I should say. But at the end of the day, if you're going to talk to someone, of course, talk to someone who understands what you're going through, or who can at least give you some kind of wisdom to help you get beyond it. Now, here's the caveat. A lot of times I'll have people share things with me, and usually I ask them if they want the truth. And I said, okay, if you want the truth. And usually I don't just spout something off to be mean or harsh or anything like that. But when I ask them if they want the truth, that means, first of all, I'm going to call it like I see it. But secondly, a lot of times I follow up with examples so they can see it as well. And then they can make a decision. And at that point, they either make a decision and move forward, and they stop blaming other people, because now you've gotten some answers, or now you've gotten some kind of relief. But at the end of the day, whether you talk to someone else or not, or you seek information or read a book, or however you get the answers or insights, whether you do that or not, at the end of the day, your success, your life, your magnificent life, your happy life, or I should say your joyous life, because with joy comes a lot more rewards. It's up to you. So even if you make a mistake, sometimes we don't want to acknowledge that we've made a mistake. We don't want to acknowledge our role that we played in our own lives and our own, let's say, demise when it came to achieving that particular goal. And you know what? Just acknowledge it. You don't have to acknowledge it to anybody else except the person you see in the mirror. And hopefully that would be you. So it is about you facing that adversity, because usually we don't blame other people until we run into a problem. If it's going smoothly, oh, it's the best thing ever. But then when there's a little challenge, then it's someone else's fault. Okay, so when you blame someone else, you are holding yourself back. Here's number 3. Number 3 is quitting when things seem to be a little bit difficult. When it comes to you achieving your goals, I think a lot of people, and this is something I had to become aware of, We are programmed for survival as human beings. But here's the thing. There's more to your life than just surviving. That is a very low energy place to be. And how do you know that? Because a lot of people who are doing things just to survive, they're not happy people. And they rarely, go outside of their comfort zone because that's where their success is. So as a result, they feel kind of unfulfilled. So they start looking around for other things to fulfill them. But when things get a little difficult, you have to understand, because we're built for survival, well, your brain and your mind, it automatically kind of goes into some kind of protection mode, which feels like a distress mode. It feels a little chaotic. It feels that fear pops up because now you're about to do something very different, very new. You're learning something you've never learned before. And you're like, wow, is this really going to work? Because this is not what I'm accustomed to. Understand this. And you know what a better example is? I think exercising. Sometimes, when we're exercising and, your body starts to be a little sore, and I can talk about that right now, because I'm back in full exercise mode. So, you don't like it. Okay. But you like it, but you don't like it because in game, how it's going to play out if you stick with it and you do what you're supposed to do. You know how you're going to feel eventually, that your body will adjust and you're going to become stronger. Okay, so the same thing applies when you're achieving other goals. If you're working to make for example, a certain amount of money that you've never made before, your survival mode is going to kick in like nobody's business and saying, why are you stepping out like that? Here's what we make. This is our comfort zone, and we need to stay right here. And even when you start to reach out and you start to get to a point where you see how this can work, you're still going to kind of pull your coattail and back up because it doesn't feel so safe. So you don't quit when things seem to be difficult. So when it starts if you have to learn something new and you go, it's too hard. Well, it's too hard because you've never seen it before. But I imagine as a baby, I imagine being a baby, and I'm not a baby anymore. I can't even remember. But the point is, when you're a baby and a baby can't walk, you notice when they're trying to walk, they get up, they stumble, they fall, they get up, they stumble, they fall, and eventually they get up and they walk. So the thing about that, it wasn't easy for them either. It's a little bit difficult. It's like, okay, I'm used to someone carrying me around. And a lot of times some babies will resist walking as they start to get a little bit older. They resist that and they hold their arms up because they want mommy to pick them up. And mommy has to kind of say, you know what, you're kind of heavy now, and you kind of need to take a shot at this walking thing. And the thing about that, if you leave them alone, they will figure it out, and they will walk. And even if they fall a few times, they will get it right. This is across the board. This never stops. As you start to get older and you try something new, here's the excuse when people, get beyond a certain age. And is that, I'm too old to learn something new. That's ridiculous. Okay. If there's nothing wrong with that person's brain, they can still learn something new. As a matter of fact, it's encouraged. It's what keeps you mentally sharp. So the point that I'm making is it might be difficult in the beginning, but as you keep going back to the drawing board, it becomes second nature. A lot of things that I've learned in business, it became second nature for me, and it is second nature now. And there are things that I can rattle off and give answers when it comes to being successful in business. I don't have to look those things up. I don't have to read 1,000 books. Now, I do read a lot because I like reading. However, the point that I'm making is it will be difficult in the beginning, but at some point, you will adjust. And so if you use the fact that it's a little difficult as a reason to quit, yes, you're holding yourself back. All right, so let's go to number 4. Number 4 is refusing to make the changes that will take you where you want to go. And this kind of goes back to when people get older. Oh, I'm too old to learn new tricks. Oh, or learn something new or do something different. And they talk themselves out of it. And I've heard, I don't know what event. I was somewhere and the lady was speaking, and I think she was like 60, because she mentioned her age, 61 or 60 or 61. And she mentioned her age. And one of the things she said to the audience, and she was talking to us actually about things on the internet and how to use the internet. And one of the things she said, she got to a point and she said, yeah, well, this part, I'm going to skip over this part because it's too hard. So I just leave that to the young people. Our brains, once you get past a certain age, your brain's not wired for that. And I'm like, how ridiculous is that to sell yourself short? And I'm not judging her. I'm just using this as an example, is that, you know what? Make the change. Learn what you need to learn. You know, I am never going to convince myself that I can't learn something. Now, there might be something that I feel is not necessary for me to learn, okay, or I just flat out don't want to learn it. And see, in that case, just keep it real. I do not want to learn this. But you can better believe, if this is going to take me where I want to go in life, if this is going to help me achieve my goals, I'm going to learn it. And I'm capable of learning, just as all of you are. You know, it's like, okay, you're a thinking human being. And he said, well, you know, I'm not as smart as this person. That's smart. Says who? Some tests you took in school. You know, don't let any of that stuff define your life. Don't refuse to make the necessary changes that's going to take you where you want to go. Learning new things or doing something new so that you will have a different outcome, it's so worth it. Because then you look back on it and now you're comfortable, you're living the life you want to live, or you are contributing in a way that you want to contribute, and you feel so good about who you are and where you are and what you've done to get there. That's an accomplishment. Okay. So, do your best not to refuse to make the changes. Now, it's not always a change where you have to learn something. Sometimes you have to change, something about your personality that is counterproductive to your success. Now, it doesn't mean you have to be a fake person. That's not what this is about. And I'll use me as an example. You know, I'm a direct person. I don't consider myself a rude person, but if someone asks me a question, I will ask them, well, do you want me to tell you the truth? And if they say yes, I'm going to tell them the truth. If they say no, then I will most likely not give them an answer. And I'll say, well, the answer that I have, it's not going to help you because you don't want to hear it. Okay. But direct, in my mind, is people often connect being direct with being rude. But no, you can be direct but kind. Okay. You can be direct but respectful. And full confession, I mean, not that this matters, but no, if I'm angry and I'm direct, it might not be so nice. Actually, you know, even then, I'll just probably say it more firmly, okay, and mean it, okay. Not that I wouldn't mean it if I didn't say it firmly, but let's move on. So the point is, however, but if you're direct and you are, let's say, just like obnoxious to the point where even though what you're saying can help, but it's not going to help that person because they can't hear you, or you are of no good. It's not functional, not you, the person, but what you're delivering is of no good to them. And it doesn't allow you to follow through on your calling. Then yeah, you might want to change that. So sometimes it involves changing, aspects of your delivery, aspects of your personality. Now, here's another caveat. Sometimes, like, for example, I said I'm direct. Sometimes there are people whose feelings get hurt fairly easily because their ego is out front and they don't want to hear the truth. I don't believe in shoving the truth down someone's throat. That's why, out of respect for them, I will ask them if they want me to give the truth. Now, this is the truth as I see it, based on either let's say something internal that's prompting me to say something or showing me something, and something meaning the Holy Spirit, or just me making a decision based on knowledge, based on having been there, done that, and having the experience, or whatever the case may be. But at the end of the day, the caveat is, it's about not being, let's say, not changing so that you can be of some good, not changing how you deliver something. Consider changing it. But the person whose feelings get hurt just because the wind blew, well, you can't be responsible for that. At the end of the day, that doesn't mean you have to change. That means they need to do some soul searching. So it's not always one way, you guys. Okay, and the final one, as we start to wrap up here, is, this kind of connects to number 5, refusing to make the changes that will take you where you want to go. You have to be willing to take an honest look at yourself. You have to allow yourself to grow. You have to allow yourself to look at some things. And this is not about beating yourself up. It is never about beating yourself up or saying that you're this, I don't know, bad person or whatever. It's not about that. But it is about taking an honest look at yourself and saying, you know what, based on my capabilities, based on the kind of person that I desire to be, based on my gifts and talents, my purpose for being here, this part of me, I need to modify this so that I can follow through and actually carry that out. So that means that's called growth. I've heard people say, well, this is just who I am. And I'm saying to myself, okay, if you're not helping anyone, or if you're not doing what it is that excites you, or if it's just not taking you where you want to go, then, well, maybe that's not who you are. Sometimes we are programmed to be a certain way because of our environment, because of our upbringing. Like sometimes people will say that, oh, this person is so mean. Well, they're probably doing some mean things and saying some mean things and having, showing mean behavior. They're probably doing that. But at the end of the day, we have to keep in mind that person probably went through something. Now, should they inflict it on everyone else? No. But where I'm going with this is that person has to be honest enough to look in the mirror and go, you know what? I want to help people, but because of how I am, I can't really help anybody. So, and that's just one example, but you can look at other examples and decide. But at the end of the day, how do you know? You say, well, how do I know? One thing about life's going to tell you the truth when nobody else does. If you have these amazing skills and you're working at helping these people and nobody wants your help, but you can help them, then yeah, you got to adjust something. Or if you're doing all of this and nobody around you, they're not getting any results, and this is if they're doing the work, then yeah, you need to take a look and see what's going on. So life will always give you the answers to the questions. And so, as I said, you have to allow yourself to grow. And that means you have to allow God to stretch you. And sometimes that doesn't always have to feel good. Sometimes I think we have like this idea, and we're going to wrap up on this, that everything when it comes to success, when it comes to achievement, that it's going to be easy. It's supposed to feel good all the way. And you have to be, and that's just how it's going to be. Well, that's not real. The truth of the matter is you have to be okay with some discomfort. And I think we live in a society because every time we have a pain or something, a lot of people want to get medicine. And because there's always some kind of pill they can throw at it or something, medicine has convinced us that we're not supposed to have any kind of discomfort. Now, there's certain discomforts. Yeah, you might want to do something about that. But you must understand that if you're not willing to go through something, it's very difficult to grow and go to the next level. And if I have more time, I'd give you, I guess I love my stories. I'd give you some examples of some of the things that I've been through. But I can tell you from learning how to provide better business as a realtor, when I was in real estate, and when I got my real estate company, and I had to deal with people that worked with me and in a sense for me. The people that worked for me, these were the people I was paying. The ones that worked with me, they were independent contractors. So I had to learn things about myself. I had to stretch. I had to be willing to grow, and I had to be willing to look in the mirror and go, okay, what do you need to do that will make your life not make your life better, but also make the lives of people around you better, such that you accomplish whatever goal that you set. So think about that. those are 5 things you can take a look at. And if you say yes to any of these, then yes, you are holding yourself back. And if you say, you know what, Pat, I'm not doing any of this, but I'm still not making it, then that's a mindset issue that perhaps you need to dig a little deeper on. And we're going to talk more about that. But in the meantime, check the show notes because I have an event that's coming up that talks about Shift to Your Magnificent Life, where we kind of talk about resetting the mindset and looking at what you want to, adjustments you want to make. And as I wrap up, understand this, you have to be willing to plant, let's say, the success that you desire, or if it's wealth that you desire, or good health or relationships, you have to be willing to plant those seeds in rich, healthy soil, and you will definitely get the return. If you're not getting the return that you desire in any of those areas, or one of those areas, or however it works out, then it's because there is something that you need to pay attention to. Please take a look at it. It doesn't make you a bad person. There's not one person that I've ever met in my life, and I'm going to go out on a limb and say there's not one person on this planet who has not, let's say, done something that they wish they hadn't done, said something they wish they hadn't said, or made a mistake that they wish they hadn't made, but they did it because they didn't know any better. So as a result, they had to do some learning and they had to do some growing. And I don't know of anybody that's lived that life where they haven't fallen down a few times. So you guys, and this is going to sound like I'm making light of it, but I'm not. But the reality of it, it's not that deep. And the reason why I say it's not that deep, because you are so much stronger than what you may think you are. And if you just put that fear in a box, okay, or stare it in the face, it'll dissipate. And while you might still feel a little fear, you will have the courage will override it, and you will go forward and make some great things happen. Listen, that's all I have for you today. And in the meantime, I want you guys to do life with power, because you are built by design to win. Don't let anything hold you back, especially don't let it be you.